not every training session you have can be a good one. This is something that you just kind of have to learn to deal with, and in today's video I'm going to share a workout that I did when I knew I was going to have a bad workout day. So for context, it's pretty close to the end of exam time period in my university, and there were assignments I had to do, there was stuff I had to study for, but I still needed to get a workout in. And due to a mixture of stupidity and poor time management, I just didn't budget the time to get a full proper workout in. Thankfully, this was pretty close to when I was planning to do a deload anyway, but still, not ideal amount of time to actually get the workout in. So what I decided to do, instead of moping around or skipping the workout or just bullshitting my way through the sets or skipping sleep, I would modify the workout such that I could still get a really good stimulus in for the things that I wanted, so that I at least wouldn't backslide. That's the key thing about bad days. Your goal isn't necessarily to eke out progress on bad days, but rather to keep yourself moving training momentum-wise until you can resume your regularly scheduled training. So with that in mind, I chose specifically movements which would help me focus on my goals. So you'll notice through this unedited footage that I don't do any direct side delt work or any sort of direct delt work. I just focus on a push and a pull and then arm work for a high volume of sets. So in this case, I did 5 sets of one exercise for each body part. Using higher volumes and low exercise selection is a really easy way to squeeze a workout into a shorter amount of time. And also doing movements which can be superset easily will also compound this. Instead of doing a regular superset, however, where you're taking a rest in between, or not in between each exercise, but performing both exercises back to back, or however many exercises are in the set and then resting, is not ideal because it extends the amount of time that you might have to take up. So in its place, you can do what's called an alternating superset, where you just go back and forth between 2 or more exercises. Some people also call these giant sets, but that generally seems to apply only when there's 3 or more lifts in the rotation. But I chose close neutral grip pull-ups with some added weight and dumbbell bench press because it covers a lot of the bases that I really wanted to focus on in the short time that I did have. Firstly, I wanted to get some really good lat work in and some upper back work in, while also getting some forearm work, some grip work, and the neutral grip pull-ups really covered that in the way that I was doing them. Because if you do low rest times on a lot of exercises, you'll find that secondary muscles actually end up getting more stimulus. So I found my forearms and my biceps were getting more out of these neutral grip pull-ups than if I were to rest longer. And the dumbbell bench press, in a similar vein, although nominally being more chest focused, I find really works my triceps in a unique way. And when done with these short rest times like you're seeing, it creates a pretty interesting effect where my triceps and my chest were failing at around the same time. Now, dumbbell bench press is also a fairly safe to fail lift, so I don't have to worry about getting stuck under pins, and I can just focus on getting into position, pressing as much as I can, and then going back to my pull-ups. I ended up getting, of the 5 sets for the pull-ups, 5, then 4, and 3 down to 1 for a total of 16 pretty hard reps. And I was quite satisfied with that because throughout the day, I kind of knew that a bad day was coming. So I'd been doing some repeating sets of 5 with just body weight on and off throughout the day. So the next day, my lats were quite cooked. The positioning that the dumbbells actually end up taking when I am doing these dumbbell presses leads to more upper chest recruitment, because unlike my barbell press, in which I have a pretty low touch point, the ability of the dumbbells to move freely and my cueing to retract a little stronger on these allows my upper chest to get more stimulus. So I found that the next day, instead of my lower pecs and middle pecs being sore, it was mostly my middle and upper pecs being sore, and my triceps as well. Despite being off program, I actually ended up enjoying this training day quite a bit because it allowed me to experiment and get some hard work in with movements that I don't normally push in the same way. So I don't really do a lot of neutral grip pull-ups. It's almost always pronated or supinated pull-ups. And I've really been wanting to try these neutral ones because I want to start doing weighted pull-ups in my program soon. So this gave me an opportunity to experiment with both weighted pull-ups and neutral grip pull-ups at the same time. And likewise, experimenting with dumbbell bench as a primary pressing exercise instead of having it be a secondary accessory to the bench press done after a main bench press variation. I think it was quite fun, and I'll definitely keep it in mind as something I can do in the future. Other than that, after that, I moved on to some arm work, just doing some heavier barbell curls. I wanted to experiment with some heavier barbell curls and some incline skull crushers, or some people would call these a French press. There's a lot of, unique nuance around the terminology that we use to describe it, but it's basically just a triceps extension on an incline bench with a single dumbbell. And I was aiming for some higher reps with the tricep work because I felt that I didn't get quite enough reps in terms of tricep work with the dumbbell bench, if you were noticing how many reps I was getting. Here, I kept hitting the dumbbell against the back of the bench. That's just a unfortunate byproduct of the movement. But I refined my technique over the course of a couple sets while experimenting with this, and I ended up getting a pretty good tricep stimulus by the end of the day. I think that in terms of mindset, it's really important to utilize bad days and off days in a way which is productive, because even if you can't eke out progress on that day, or even if you don't have time for a full session, and you commit yourself to not backsliding, it also leaves room for what I've been doing and talking about here, which is experimentation. You can sort of try things that you otherwise wouldn't have the ability to in your program. And that can be useful in the sense that if you end up having off days that are sort of closer to where you're planning to switch up your training anyway, you can use this as a way of scoping out the movements or the techniques that you want to apply in your training in the future. I ended up having to do down sets on the barbell curls, dropping the weight on occasion simply because the alternating superset nature did not allow my biceps to recover fully in between sets in order to repeat the effort. Another key aspect that you can apply to bad sessions or time-crunched sessions is to attach it to either some sort of musical playlist or some kind of video. So in my case here, I just stuck on some natural hypertrophy on the TV and went to town as fast as possible. Using some kind of music or playlist that is tailored to the specific amount of time you need can also be really useful. Say if you don't want to be watching the clock all the time, you can kind of keep track of the time by which song you're on. Those are all very useful mechanisms. that you can use. A lot of people sleep on the alternating superset as a technique. It doesn't have to only be applied to time crunched or poor sessions. You can see a lot of people who make use of alternating supersets in their regular training. And I think that this has some pretty interesting implications. So one, of course, it saves time, and that can actually free up more time for you to do smaller movements. So if you're, say, putting your torso on the back burner, you can do alternating supersets for your torso, and then you can dedicate more time in the day to your arm or delt work or traps or whatever. This mostly applies to upper body sessions, though. In terms of lower body sessions, you would want to have a very similar in some principles but different in others methodology. I think that when it comes to lower body days tend to be minimalist already, typically, because what are you going to do? You're going to have like maybe either a main squat or a hinge, then you're going to have some kind of like leg curl or extension or a lunge, and then you might have a secondary variation of a squat or a hinge, not in any particular order. And then what? Like abs, calves, and if you're smart, maybe some back in there. So a lower body training session on a time crunch basically just looks like maybe using some lower rest times. You could do something like a Widowmaker for just the squat, for instance. So say you're not able to do those 5 or 6 exercises on a leg day, committing to either like one set of rest pause on whatever you're doing. So, something actually evil like rest pause deadlifting or high rep rest pause squatting. Or the other alternative is you can pick something like lunges, or you can pick glute ham raises or leg curls or a leg press and just go ham on it, like 4 to 6 sets for some moderate reps between like 6 and 12 or 8 and 15, and just go to town on the movement. Really make it the primary focus of the workout. Those are actually cases in which you can create a stimulus which can help you later, even if it's sort of outside the line of specificity, on the basis that you can still get positive indicators for strength and hypertrophy adaptations. So if you're going to have a bad session, I would say it would be a really good idea to commit to experimentation and commit to trying some new techniques, having a positive attitude. If you let yourself be a doomer, all that's going to do is make the session worse. And if you have an even worse session than you could have, then maybe you actually will backslide. And nobody wants to backslide in strength or hypertrophy. That's all I have for you now. So please take care, train hard, have a good day.